Well, folks, it's time to kick it old school. So you can feel cool. Give it to me, baby. Baby. Yeah.
Welcome everybody to the Miles and Crawford Variety Hour. Today is July 4th. We're celebrating America's independence from tyranny. A quick quote just to get us started off from the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. The actual fucking amendment. So happy 4th of July, everybody.
Happy 4th of July, everybody.
Woo!
Woo!
Today we're going to be talking about freedom in America. How free are we compared to other countries? Maybe touch on nationalism if we get around to it. A big portion of our show is going to be dedicated to the fact that so many people in America are incarcerated, and that goes along with the 13th Amendment that I just quoted. We have some charts and figures, and when we post our blog that we usually post to go along with our podcast, we'll have charts and sources and things for people to look at later to see where we got our information. Right now in America, half of the world's prison population of about 9 million is held in the U.S., China, or Russia. Prison rates in the U.S. are the world's highest at 724 people per 100,000. In Russia, the rate is 581. At 145 per 100,000 people, the imprisonment rate of England and Wales is at about the midpoint worldwide. Many of the lowest rates are in developing countries, but overcrowding can be a serious problem. Kenyan prisons have an occupancy level of 343.7%.
These facts are brought to you, by the way, by Wiki and BBC. So before you guys are like, where are you getting this ridiculousness? We looked it up. So it is off of Wiki and the BBC network. So, I mean, I don't really feel that BBC was going to be a bunch of pathological liars. I thought they were a pretty solid source right there. They are not fake news.
Yeah, we don't pull our figures from, sadly, CNN used to be a really great news source, I thought, years ago, but they've really taken a dive as far as their reputation. I haven't visited their site in probably 2 years regularly.
I visit theirs when, something will pop up and I'm trying to get, the quickest version of what's going on, and I can pop up and see, the one headline to find out the importance of it.
Exactly.
That's about it. So,
yeah.
Amongst all the rest of our statistics, I brought up the NAACP, and they put up a fact sheet showing that from 1980 to 2015, we went from 500,000 incarcerations to 2.2 million people. Not only that, but every 1 in 37 adults in the U.S. is under correctional supervision. So let's think about that. 1 in every 37.
So is that like probation and parole, halfway houses, maybe the Worth Center kind of here?
Whether it's it's tracking house arrest.
House arrest.
Those kind of things. Okay. So it's about 1 out of 37. So I'm looking around my neighborhood. Not really. I'm actually in my garage thinking about my neighborhood. And I'm thinking about my houses. So I'm thinking, you know what? It's pretty much my house, this house, 2 houses down, across the street, and those houses. I mean, one of us adults
is under some kind of supervision. Because this isn't a really long street, but how many people do you think live on this street? 200, 300?
Yeah.
So you have to think 300 people, that's 10%.
That's
right?
Ridiculous.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Am I doing math right? I need a man.
That'd be 10 out of 3. Yeah, right? Sure.
Something like that.
Something like that. Brains aren't functioning.
I mean, if anybody wants to do the math and get back to us, that'd be great. No.
We always look for feedback.
Right? You guys never give us feedback. I mean, we've asked outright, can I get some feedback? Because we want to be successful, and we want you to enjoy our show. Mm-hmm. But we don't know what you like, don't like. Anonymously, if you're a friend or family, you don't want to hurt our feelings. We just really want to put out a good show, and if we don't get feedback, then we don't know how we're doing. And we don't want to lose listeners. We want to gain a point, right?
Yeah, we do.
We want people to listen to us.
Now, out of the 1 in every 37 adults in the U.S. that are underneath correctional supervision, nationwide, African American children represent 32% of children who are arrested, 42% of children who are detained, and 52% of children whose cases are judicially waived to criminal courts.
Mm-hmm.
Though African American and Hispanics make up approximately 32% of the U.S. population, they comprised 56% of all incarcerated people in the year 2015. And I can't even imagine now, especially with a lot of the protests, a lot of the shootings, obviously they have come into light, how much more that number has risen, or arose, however you want to verbally put it. But to me, that's absolutely outrageous.
Well, and how long have, and a lot of minorities, but specifically black people, since the civil rights movement in the 50s, have been saying for years, we experience police brutality and nobody listens. And the way the media and the government portrays black people to the rest of us, they try and create that divide, what we've talked about before. You know, like, look at these black people, always in jail, nothing but a liquor store and a gun store on every corner. Well, who puts those liquor and gun stores on every corner? And, you know, I read a long time ago, it was talking about how different places were segregated in the 50s and how, like, out in L.A., they kept the black people just across the tracks. Only black people lived there. And, you know, and they've always kept them in poor, depressed neighborhoods and given them no opportunity.
Well, and another really interesting, now this one I saw it on a commercial, so I could be slightly getting this wrong. So, you know, commercials kind of fly through my brain.
You remembering.
Me remembering it. But it was the Truth campaign, you know, to try to get kids to quit smoking. But, in African American neighborhoods, there is 3 times more cigarette vendors than anywhere else. And so it's one of those things where, you know, you are, again, like you said, like, where are we putting the liquor stores? Where are we putting certain opportunities? Because pawn shops, those kind of things. Because it's already, you are putting the picture in front of them and telling them that there's no other way out.
That's your life, and that's where you belong.
You're not putting a Yale University in the middle of that neighborhood.
Right.
You're just not. But instead, you're going to put up like 5 liquor stores, 6 Taco Bells, 3 White Castles, a Popeye. You know, you're going to put up every 7-Eleven shop you possibly can and some pawn shops and whatever else. But you're not putting up university and community colleges.
Right.
You put those on the outskirts.
Exactly.
Because that way it creates diversity for the white people who can go to school too.
Right.
But we're not, you know, we want diversity. And the only way we can show diversity is white cops with black kids.
Right.
And
that's stupid.
I mean, it's beyond, like, why aren't you showing black cops with white kids? I mean, you see that every once in a while. I'm not saying you don't. But when you're talking about promoting diversity or the good cop theory is some, you know, cop playing basketball with some black kids, they're like, well, that's
diverse. Look at him go.
Look at him being so nice to the black kids. I mean,
why is that even a newsworthy item? And I'm not saying that that's not newsworthy. I'm just saying that why is that so extraordinary?
Yeah, where are the Asian cops that are out there playing with the black kids or the white kids?
We need to report on that. You know,
where are the Hispanic cops playing with the black kids? I mean, one of my thing is like they make it a white and black issue. They put that out there.
They do.
They promote it across social media. They promote it across the news, and they allow people to believe the picture because it's what the picture framed. It's like we've all seen that ridiculous news broadcast from the Weather Channel, and this guy's like in this boat and he's rowing, right? But like he gets out of the boat, he's like in an inch of water, but the way the camera angle was was that he was in this torrential flood. There was no hope and the town was devastated. The dude was like on the street after like a really bad, like, I mean, hell, after last night's rainstorm, I could have like rowboated down my driveway for like a solid 5 minutes and made that some kind of newsworthy, look how bad it is.
Yeah.
But it wasn't reality. That's not reality. But when you paint pictures in front of people and tell them that this is your reality, the Truman Show like thing, that's what you're doing.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people, especially white people, and we're all poor across the board when it comes to race. And so some white people bristle at the idea of white privilege. Like, I'd love to see where I have white privilege because I'm doing horrible. But they don't realize that you're still getting a better opportunity than your black girlfriend or boyfriend or you know, or whatever. You're still considered over that person. Or where you live, you have better job opportunities, or
Exactly, because if you don't have a vehicle, or you don't have the means, or you're raised a certain way, you don't have those things given to you. Now, don't get me wrong, this is all about pulling up my bootstraps and you just work it hard.
That's
Okay, well, I don't. How if you don't
impossible.
have
You can't.
boots? How if you don't have straps that attach to the boots?
Well,
How
not
if you
only
don't have that?
but just like you had sent me that article about Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis, passing legislature that no local or city jurisdictions can raise the minimum wage above the state level because they had raised it to $10 an hour.
They had $10 now. They've bucked it down to $7.50 because they're a bunch of assholes.
I mean,
you're
because
assholes.
I guess because people could afford an extra gallon of milk a week, like they're drinking too much milk.
Yep.
I mean, that's just a way. And St. Louis has got a large black population. I read in that article it was talking about. Not only that, but black people never have a voice because they're the gerrymandering. Like, we might actually have the opportunity to redraw some lines in different states. What was it, North Carolina?
Yeah.
That
heavily gerrymandered.
Supreme Court ruled, or whatever that those were, that it's not right that the way they have it drawn right now is it
not only do they
affects black people because of the districts or whatever.
Yep, and not only so to go along the hand with the gerrymandering. Okay, so we've gerrymandered the crap out of every state. And there's that. And everybody knows that there is a lot of truth in that. I don't care whether you're Democratic, Republican, whatever you are, you know that there is that going on. And even if it works in your favor, you know that it's happening. But what they did is before they drew up the gerrymandering laws, if I've got this correct, is that they put in the voter restrictions and then gerrymandered. So first, you tell people that you can't be a felon, you can't do this, you can't do that, da-da-da-da. Here's all these restrictions for you just to be able to vote. And then we're going to take all the people who are going to vote against us, we're going to put them in a place where there's not enough voting places, there's not enough voting, polls or booths. And then we're going to make sure that even if we do put up 5, look at us, we put up 5 voting polls and nobody showed up.
Do you know
because you gerrymandered a certain group of people to live in a certain district and not allow them to have the rights to vote. And I thought that was the whole part of democracy.
I thought it was really sad in this last election. I saw some, I follow hate groups and things like that just to see, like, what they post or whatever. And apparently this used to be a big deal long ago, but they were talking about how they were going to be going around to the poor black districts and offering 40s and bags of weed or money to go get high instead of voting. Like, here, I paid $20.
Yeah, I heard about that.
You know what I mean? Like, really?
And that's and again though. So
do you think that anybody that's willing to stand in line and vote is going to be like, oh sure, thanks, man? I mean, if they care that much to get in line to vote,
yeah.
You really think? To me, they automatically bristle like, fuck you.
Yep.
You know.
And I think that just goes to show how our politicians view us in general, and the politicians have
how scared they are.
Scared they are. They're scared
to suppress us all.
Yep.
Because we're two white women, by the way. I'm sure maybe we've brought that up.
Yeah.
Or whatever, but
we're like white.
We're pretty white. Well,
you're very ginger. Like she's straight, like pasty, can't go out to the sun with her ginger ass hair, like white. And I am Polish white. Like I am your Polish, German, Swedish white girls.
Folks.
Yeah, that's what we are. So don't get us wrong when
we try to assume what it's like to be black or
because we have no idea.
But
we don't. We can sympathize and we can empathize and everything else.
We see what's going on.
Yeah.
We see that shit ain't right.
Yeah, and we agree to that.
That whole Philando Castillo, I've never said his name aloud. I'm sorry, I've read it over and over again, but I've never actually.
Philandro Castro.
Is that? I apologize for mangling.
I feel like we just totally screwed up his name because that situation was horrifying.
I mean, they showed the dash cam footage, and I saw the video when it happened, when she posted it, the girlfriend or the wife, when she posted it on Facebook Live, I saw her side of it, and then I watched that dash cam video. But
Philando Castile.
Okay, thank you.
Or Castile, but we apologize, but Philando Castile, just so we put the respects out there because he deserves any bit of respect that we can give him in the afterlife.
At least pronounce his fucking name right.
Yeah.
Jeez. But that, to me, was shocking. And we have riots all over the place. And we have this over and over again where it's clear-cut case of murder.
Straight murder.
Straight murder. I mean, these are policemen and women who are shooting citizens Well, I was
seatbelted
scared. I
in their
thought he was-
vehicles with a 4-year-old in the back
I was
seat.
scared for my life. You shouldn't be scared for your life as a policeman. That's your job.
Your job is you are
put your
supposed to be
life.
trained.
Yeah, you're supposed to be trained to disarm people. But you see that all the time where they'll, like with Dylan Roof.
Oh,
You know what I mean? They walked him out and bought him a Happy Meal or some such.
Took him to Burger King.
Took him to Burger King, and
they weren't afraid of him because he was a young white boy.
Well, and the guy that shot up the theater, James.
Oh yeah.
With the orange hair.
He was all crazy eyed.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, these white folks just get walked out and they're misunderstood, and that's just like with terrorism. When a white person runs their vehicle into or
he was
blows
drunk,
up.
or we need to investigate. We don't want to jump to any conclusions.
It's never. But one brown person can shoot another, and it's always terrorism. It's terrorism. He had Islamic sympathies, or whatever. And
but aren't we like the ones that are really the terrorists?
Christians are more likely to cause violent acts in America than Muslims to date so far.
But yeah,
and
we're not the ones that are getting locked up. I mean, and that's back to the whole entire incarceration.
Yes, I don't mean to. I know I get off on a tangent.
Because it all ties in though. What people don't see that is that like
suppression, or
yep.
I'm sorry, oppression.
Yep.
I guess across the board. Is these brown people, and I'm talking about. I guess I shouldn't call them brown people. I apologize. Muslims are terrorists, and Mexicans are illegals.
Yep, they're illegals automatically.
That rape and kill us all, Yep. And I'm just so tired of it. I just want to get along with everybody and give them big old. I just want to live and let people live. You know what I mean?
Yep, just let them be. And the same point is that when you have people like Dylan Roof who are getting walked out, sent to Burger King, and then you've got another dude seriously sitting in his vehicle, letting the cop know that he's carrying a gun, that he's licensed to carry the gun, gets shot in front of his 4-year-old kid in the car. Then the NRA puts out that disgusting fucktoid of a commercial that's branding terrorism and puts that out there on national television. This, again, is allowing everybody to believe that the reason that the jails are overcrowded is because this is a choice. This isn't a choice. This is forced living. You're forcing people to commit crimes. You're keeping them in poverty. You're keeping them.
Pushy them. And you're pushy them. When people snap.
Yep.
And then we're like, oh, look at that. See, that's why we keep them in those neighborhoods, because they're animals.
Yep. And that's not at all the case.
How many times do you read? And here, I don't know if you experience this.
Fucking panda bears are cool as shit until you come up and fuck with them. And when you
right.
fuck with them, they're
some mean-ass bears.
Dude,
they're not nice.
They're going to eat you.
They'll fuck you up.
I got like 2 of them on my body, nice and tattooed, because those they're sweet and cuddly. But
your coffee cup is a
and
panda
my coffee cup's a panda bear.
You fucking nerd.
I love pandas.
Yeah, she's like, they're vicious, but I'm covered in them. So.
Because they look all sweet and innocent, but
right.
really.
But don't fuck with me, because I'll eat you and you're young.
That's kind of the truth.
I guess that's a self-description. Are you a panda? I don't know what I would be if I would be a house cat, like I wouldn't even be like a tiger.
You're vicious until you're let out into the wild.
Right, and I'm like, oh shit, you know what, actually, I'd rather be inside eating treats right now. I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
Incarceration.
Incarceration, and this is why we meander. I never make any promises when I advertise for our next podcast. Listen, this is what we're gonna talk about. We're not
guaranteeing you anything. I think even the last vlog, I was like, look, like it was up in the air, and that's what it is, and that's what we do, because again, when you're talking with friends and you're having some coffee, and
it's a natural conversation.
It is,
and you want to include as much as you can when you're talking about. We're talking about freedom overall. Yeah. And I want to, incarceration is a big deal, but there's other ways to feel oppressed in this country right now, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Like. Have you watched The Handmaid's Tale?
I have not. I am so scared of watching that show.
It is.
It frightens me.
I know that
so much.
I hope that some of our listeners have actually had a chance to. A lot of people don't understand that the pro-life movement, the pro-birth movement, as I like to call it.
Yep.
Because I don't care about life after.
They don't. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care about adoptions or orphanages or all the rest of the children. They just want to make sure that your baby's being born.
They're not just against abortion. They're against birth control of any kind. Like, you should not try and stop life from being created in any means. So when you say, yeah, I'm against abortion, I'm pro-life, and you vote for pro-life policies, you have to realize that you're also voting for you not to have the right to have birth control, or to have a right over your body and how you have kids. Like, if you get pregnant, you have to have that baby, and then you have to take care of it. And, you know, some people are like, well, you should, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, there's been all kinds of studies and whatnot, and to combat that, and not to mention the overpopulation of the earth and climate control, things like that. Like, stop having 14 fucking kids, people. We can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
That was great 1,000 years ago when there was like 20 people on the planet.
Oh, man, I have got to bring this up because I have to. So, I'm not trying to give shout out to other podcasts, but I think everybody knows I'm a huge NPR nerd.
I love NPR.
I love NPR. And, oh, God. So there was one. I'm not sure if it was on their Undone podcast or their, I think another one's called List something. I should probably know off the top of my head. But, so I was listening to one of their NPR awesome podcasts, and it was called, crap. See, now everything's escaping me now when I talk about it. Anyways, the moral of the story is, so it was about religion and life, how people decide, like, about, like, their religious beliefs and when they go and what they choose from.
Right.
So, there was this couple. So there's this guy, and he's in his early 20s, and he becomes huge on the polygamist sect. He ends up getting, like, the youngest guy in this polygamous sect out in Utah, and he gets, like, 5 wives in, like, a matter of years, which is very fast, even for the polygamist. And then these 5 wives all end up having kids. So there's one dude, 5 wives, 25 children, but they end up actually leaving the polygamist religion because, you know, he was converted, so he wasn't raised a polygamist. He became a polygamist.
He decided he wanted more than one wife.
He did. And he became a part of it. And one of the girls, like, my parents would warn me because people like that always at some point see the other side of things. So then, you know, there are these wives, and over time and over the years and ever having so many kids, you know, they decided that they were going to pierce their ears. They were going, because there's all these rules they have, but there's actually there's no place in the Bible that they read that tells them they can't pierce their ears. That tells them they can't. But because the rest of the church and the men didn't like what they were doing. So anyways, they all end up deciding to leave. They're all still married. They all still live in together. They all have jobs and whatever else in real life. But, I mean, that's, for one, like, overpopulation. Like, I've got nothing against, look, again, religion is religion. Y'all do what y'all gotta do. I mean, at the same time, though,
we don't need to populate the earth like we had to 2,000 years ago when Christianity was found. You know?
Exactly. We're cool. And I know that there is actually a decline that, you know, the millennial, exennials, whatever group.
Did you see, like, we may have to change the title of all of our stuff because apparently we're xennials, not millennials.
Yeah, that's awesome, though. And,
right. I'm like,
yay!
Hey, okay, great.
Cool. I can be offended by something else now. But again, though, here we are taking a group of people and we're making them believe a certain thing that is or is not true. And from there, they make these decisions because of the life that they were wrapped into, a commune they lived within, a life that they were taught was the only way of life.
Right.
And now they eventually broke out, but it wasn't until, you know, they're in their 30s. These women didn't get their ears pierced until their 30s. I mean, they're about our age before they decided to get out of the sect. That's huge.
Yeah, there was a show, I don't know, it might still be on the air, and I watched a couple episodes of it or whatever, but it was, I think on E&E or one of those, it's about the Amish that left their compound, you know, left their families or whatever, and I can't remember if they returned them at the end of the season or if they left and they just would document.
Oh, just like when they had the chance, like, go out when they're 15 years old for, like, X amount of nights and to see if they wanted to stay. Is that the one?
See, I didn't really watch it and I feel kind of silly now because I'm trying to remember what it was.
I think it was about the
was
teenagers
it called Breaking Amish?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait.
Was it?
Yeah, because they were like teenagers who got the chance to, like, run out.
Or just 18 or something.
Yeah, and find out they really want to stay Amish or not.
Or not, yeah. And I think, like, if I remember right, it was like a half and half. Like, some of them were like, no. I remember one of them was, like, really just could not adjust. You know, like, I don't like this. I want to go home, basically. And
I want to turn my butter, and I want to live it.
Yeah. You know, like, woo, what's the math?
And again, this all rolls back into the very beginning, because all of these things can be tied into each other to some way, shape, or form, and with our tinfoil hats on our heads. But at the same point, like, when you teach somebody a certain way of life, and that this is the only thing, when you surround them by a certain way, and you tell them that this is all that they are ever going to amount to, this is all you are ever going to...
This is your box.
This is your box, and you have to stay in here. And if you get outside of here, you know, this is what's going to happen to you. And unfortunately, with a lot of minorities in general, is that their box is huge for what their parents want them to have. But what society allows them to have is very, very small.
Right.
And we tell them that it's their fault, but we won't give them the opportunity or the chance. And when we do, we shoot them for having headphones in. We shoot them for having a plastic gun on a playground.
Or we make it impossible,
Yep.
for them to rise above. Like they're just like with voting laws.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
You
same
can't vote. Your voice doesn't
mythology.
matter. We don't want to hear from you
The
and
same
kick
mythology,
you.
And it drives me crazy just to see how. And don't get me wrong, I know racism is real and alive, and that we've got white supremacists in this country and people who believe in those kind of movements, but they're very small. No matter how much press and whatever they get, I think the larger part of our country doesn't care about race, and we do just want to get but we have the police that pick on the black people.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They make it impossible, and then they show it. They keep us segregated, even though segregation has been abolished. I mean, yeah, we go to school together, we shop together, we do this, we do that, but like where I live, I see a black person like once a week maybe, and usually there's a lot of state highways that run through there, so if I see them at a gas station, they could just be passing through. I don't actually know if
they live in your area or not.
I live in a farming community though.
Yeah.
And I was reading over in Willard, Ohio. I don't know. I think perhaps I shared that article with you, where they were every year they have like a welcoming back, like kind of festival or party or whatever for the migrant labor that comes and picks their field, because they're a farming community. And this year they were like, no, we don't want any illegals here. Well, I guess the sentiment started up last year, and only like half the migrants that usually showed up last year, and half a field of food just didn't get picked because there was no labor to do it. So this year, with all of the anti-migrants, and people are getting deported left and right.
Yep.
I mean, we could be looking at food shortages, because why do we have half a field of food not getting picked if all these people are like, Mexicans are taking our jobs? Where were all those people to fill those jobs then?
Yeah.
I mean, if you got, if you don't want migrants, and I live in a farming community, so I've actually been keeping.
And we're not saying that white people don't get out in the field. We
Right.
know that there's plenty of good farmers out there. We're
I'm
not bashing
talking
you
about
by any means.
But farmers are usually white men who ride around in their tractors and plant. They don't actually get out there and pull them fucking vegetables.
Yeah.
Very rarely. I know maybe smaller farms do, but these huge fields,
Yeah.
No, they hire labor, because if they were out there picking, then that rest of that field would have been picked by that farmer.
Yep.
He just let it rot instead of getting out there and picking it himself. And I don't farm. I don't know the labor that goes into it and how long it takes to pick, and I don't know the size of the field or whatever, but I mean, what are we going to do then if we're deporting all the people who are willing to pick food?
Yep.
And there's nobody that wants to come and pick the food.
Yep.
Like, what are we going to do this year then if last year was like that? And I moved there 4 years ago, and it used to be there was a lot of Mexicans there, and I've only seen the same two families here recently that I think just live there by, whatever. I think they like work in factories and whatnot. They're not migrants that come and farm. We used to have a Mexican food store up there that closed. My boyfriend, the factory that he works with a kid, a pair of brothers that came in on the Dream Act or whatever. Like,
yeah,
they were born
the Dreamers.
here, or what? I think they were born here, or something. I'm not real sure. And they're very nervous. Like, we could be deported any day.
And I think that's...
They were born here and always lived. You know what I mean? Like, and then get sent back to a country they've never even been to.
Well, and what comes down to it is that, for those folks who want to stay scared. I mean, look,
that's oppressing us too. Like, that was a big thing.
But they're not gonna. What's gonna happen is that not only are we arresting, incarcerating, throwing people either in jails, back to countries, deporting them, whatever we're doing it on such a stupid level of the workforce in general. Not only that, but okay, so we're not trying to be racist when we say that Mexicans are out there picking fields, or we're not trying to be any of that. What we're saying is that you cannot, in a small farming community like yours, where I know where you're living, your population, you're going to have to pay the average white male a lot more money than what you're paying any minorities.
Right.
Okay, and that's unfair and that's unjust, and we all know this. So what's then going to happen is that you're now going to be where things are going to be too costly, and they're going to talk about the money aspect, and there's money this and there's money there. And everything at the end of the day is about money.
Right.
And we're going to lose money, and our economy is going to crash if we don't have the workers. And that goes across the board, race, ethnicity, all of it. Every single bit of it has to do with us being in the workforce, getting paid rightful wages, and us being treated fairly and equally, despite no matter who you are or where you've been or what's going on. When we've talked about going into the jail systems and who we're putting in there, some of these people that are going into the jails at very young ages, most of us have seen. I know that I was only able to watch bits of it without. I was so disgusted with the child imprisonment thing they had in the documentary on Netflix, where it was. They would pay to have all these juveniles in these juvenile detention centers, and how much money that kids make up, and how much money that these jails make as long as we keep them at 90 to 100% max full. And there's all this money that goes into that.
That was actually Ohio legislation, is that the only way that a private company was willing to take over the management of our prison system, or our prison or local jails, I'm not sure which one it was if we guaranteed 98% capacity, which means that they actively have to go out and arrest people and make sure that they go to jail.
Yep.
For this to be profitable enough for us, human lives, with the slave labor, which that is the only way that you're allowed to have. That's what I read off in the first part of the podcast, that was the point, is that, yes, slavery was abolished except for those that are incarcerated or as it was committed a crime.
Yeah.
So if you're in prison, you are legally a slave. They can make you do whatever.
Yep.
And I have a brother who spent 8 years in prison, 4 years one stint, 4 years the next. And it was expensive. We had to pay to do anything, $250 to buy a card, phone card, just the fees, send somebody money, you got to pay a $5 fee, and then it takes like $250 out of theirs, to processing fees. And if someone calls you from jail, you have to give them your credit card number, and for like a 15-minute phone call, it's $15.
That's ridiculous.
And that's like a friend of mine was arrested, and he needed bailed out or picked up, one of the two. I don't remember what it was. And just for that 2-minute phone call, he just wanted to know if I could come get him. I had to pay $14 just to get that call from him. He had called somebody else and used his free phone call.
That's so ridiculous.
And that's the thing with these private prisons, whatever, is that they're trying to make money. Like, well, you're in jail, so you should have to pay for everything. Like, they charge you for tampons. They give you this little, it's supposed to be a toothbrush, but it goes on your fingertip, and it's no better than like a little tiny, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's no bigger than your finger, and it's just a little brush, and that's how they have you brush your teeth. And you get one bottle of soap, and it's clear, and it's supposed to be your body wash and your shampoo. So you have frizzy hair all the time. You have to ask the nurse for some lotion. Can I get some lotion to grease this shit up? Oh, yeah. Let me read this to you guys.
This one's a really interesting fact while she's looking at it. It's the companies that make the most money in the prisons. But,
okay, listen here, folks. The companies making the most money from prisons in America are Geo Group and Corrections Corporation of America, which I have actually done quite a bit of research on CCA. They are an awful fucking company. Which combined run more than 170 prisons and detention centers. CCA made revenues of $1.79 billion in 2015, up from $1.65 billion in 2014. Geo Group made revenues $1.84 billion, a 9% increase on the previous year.
Yep. Why do we have the jail systems? Why do we have a problem? We're fighting right now against our own city tax hike because we need more room in the jails. Now, yes, some of that does have to do with the opioid epidemic that is going on. I'm not saying that doesn't go hand in hand, but there also are a lot of people out there that are also committing very small petty crimes that are getting sent
to the local jail.
Yep.
And I will tell you, in Hancock County, they list their inmates on a website. It's one of my favorite gossip sites.
It really is.
At like 4 o'clock on a Sunday morning, you will see some interesting things before people get bailed out and, nobody sees them on Sunday. But if you look at the local jail and you look at what people are arrested for,
some of it's so dumb.
Petty theft. Petty theft. And those people will be in jail for a week. Why can't you just cite them and have them show up in court? Do we need to jail somebody who stole something so they could buy drugs?
Pretty much.
one thing if people are breaking into somebody's house, yes, that person should be jailed. Robbery, armed robbery, violent crimes. But we're talking about petty theft. If we're having such a jail overcrowding problem, then we need to stop arresting people and putting them in jail for minor misdemeanors.
Exactly.
I believe petty theft is a misdemeanor. I mean, it's one of the highest up there right before it turns into a felony. But let's stop arresting people for misdemeanors and just have them show up for court.
Exactly. And amongst all the other money statistics that we got out there, the Bureau of Prisons paid $639 million of private prisons in this fiscal year of 2014, averaging $22,159 per prisoner. For perspective, that's the same that it would cost to send 3 people to a state college.
Yep.
So again,
and
we would rather put them in prison,
dollars, people.
but we can't afford free college because we're making more money off of people being in the prisons than we are off of kids getting an education and actually being a part of society and doing what they consider.
Why can't we imprison people in colleges? You got to do 5 years. Sorry. You have to be smart in order to participate in society. I apologize.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Isn't that just ridiculous, though? Like, how many people are imprisoned and how much money it costs? And that's everything in this country is funded by taxpayer money.
Yep.
And
we're paying for these people to have this happen.
Right. We're paying people to make money off of people in prison. And we're paying, when we could, if we all just banded together and got new people in office, we could make a change. We could change things.
We could. We got to have the right people in office. And amongst everything else, which I think every podcast I have mentioned the word crowd control, because that's what I believe the government is doing, because I'm a little crazy, and that's how I believe in things.
I believe it too, though. I mean, Stalin did it in Russia. He in order to
we're just
turn
doing
them
it
into
at a
a
more
superpower,
average, slower pace, and we're just making it more acceptable for society.
Yeah, like, the whole let drug addicts die. Well, that was really great for our, the FDA to just give the green flag to Purdue Pharmaceuticals and those to get us all addicted on painkillers, and then those that couldn't handle it went on to heroin and still doing pills. And, now we're like, you know what? Let them die. Let them die. It's their fault. Yes, you're right, because the doctor told me to take this because it would help me, but he never said. Now they're doing a 360, like, oh, now they're gonna take OxyContin off the market.
They are. You be watching.
You remember Quaaludes back in the day?
Oh,
I don't remember them because they were outlawed when I was like a baby, but like
you can get your hands on some though.
You don't say. Like, let's pause this. I'm just joking.
Look, it's been many a year since I've seen them around. It's been over a decade.
I thought like that.
So,
I just want to give Miles a shout out real quick because I didn't get a chance to do as much research as I wanted, but she's got this lovely 2-page facts and things she really wants to get across to you guys. So I'll be right back, but
I'm gonna go on.
Lay it on the line, girl.
So we're going to talk about the fact that, as I mentioned before, is about crowd control. So not only are we pushing so many people in on the minority aspect into the jail cells because it is a for-profit situation, and how we are just incarcerating people for the most ridiculous reasons. But suicide rate has actually been the leading cause of death in jails every year since 2000. In 2013, the most recent year for which there are BJS statistics, a third, so 34% of jail inmates' deaths were due to suicide. The suicide rate increased 14% between 2012 and 2013 to 46 per 100,000. That compared with a 13 per 100,000 in the population as a whole. And recently, it was reported that the Corrections Corporation of America, the second largest for-profit prison system in the country, netted $3,300 per prisoner in 2015. So, let's think about this. Now, they're getting more money out of the prisoners. They are then allowing 34% of our prisoners to commit suicide. And those statistics you're talking right now, we're at 2017, so these statistics are older statistics. I don't even want to know, I do want to know what they are up to date. And I believe that if we can sit there and we can really start digging in to the jailing system as a whole, we're going to see a lot bigger corruption than we'll ever find in Hillary Clinton's emails or in Donald Trump's Russia ties. I'm sorry, but there's a bigger thing that's going on, and everything that we're doing right now is to distract us from the real issues. While we've been distracted with all of the political poop-throwing crap that they have for us right now, what we're allowing people to do is to continue to incarcerate minorities, incarcerate our youth, and not only that, but give them such terrible living conditions and no outlook for a greater hope for them to put their feet back on the ground, that they're committing suicide. 34%. I don't think 34% is acceptable. 34% would be an acceptable graduation rate. But we're allowing 34% of our prisoners to die in there. And we allow them to die. So wouldn't that be taking away the money from these people? Well, here's the thing. If you have 34% of the people who are offing themselves because of their living conditions, they're making up the 34% with minor, minute, petty theft kind of crimes, and they're refilling the jail cells. The more times that they're having prisoners who are getting themselves out, they're just creating space. They don't like the spaces that are being created, so they're finding new reasons to lock us up.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. And then they start pushing on things. They start pushing off pharmaceuticals, drugs.
Right.
How can we get them in? How can we get these people behind handcuffs?
We need money. We need to make more money.
Yep. And that's why I think, in all honesty, while marijuana has been such a hard thing and a hard push, is because if they can't bust people for having a joint or having a small bag in their car, then
that's a gateway way to get arrested.
Yep, it's an easy way to get arrested, exactly. And that's just one of those things that as long as it's
thrown into the system.
Yep.
Now you got a record for having weed. Oh,
now you're filling up our prison cells, and now you're filling up our pockets with money. I mean, that is a very sick and twisted way of looking at it, but it's something that when we're talking about, July 4th, when we're talking about the independence of America from a crazy, insane time that was, so many hundreds of years ago, what we need to realize is that our freedom has always come at a cost. And at the same time, we fought way too hard back in the day for ourselves to allow this to continue to happen. And I feel like it's doing us injustice. It's doing the immigrants injustice. We are all immigrants. We all came over here. None of us, there's very few, the Indians obviously, but there are very few people that are living in America that came and was born and raised from America, all their ancestral trails. So you really ancestral trails. There we go. You really have to look at the fact that if you want to talk about independence and you want to, wear your red, white, and blue and shoot some fireworks and drink your beer and listen to some Kid Rock and Bruce Springsteen, woo! That you have to also understand, if you want that freedom to stay, you need to have a freedom for all. Because our freedom, the more and more that we allow minorities, the more that we allow ourselves to be jailed, to be quarantined by our own government, that at some point, this Independence Day is not nearly as meaningful. And I think every year as an adult, it feels a little bit, I still love fireworks, don't get me wrong. I mean, I definitely tear up every year. I love the fireworks. But at the same point, it does not feel the same as I did as a child. It's not because I'm, have grown to be. It has
a different meaning for you now.
Yeah, because I understand that there's a cost for it now. Right. And literally a cost for it.
Yeah. Cost. Here's something that happened to me a couple years ago. I closed a bank account and I thought all my checks had cleared or whatever. And I had a check that clear through or whatever, and I wasn't aware, and they added a shit ton of fees on top of it. And it ended up being about $300.
Jesus.
And at the same time, I was moving, and I had another court case a civil matter that I had to attend to. And so when I got the letter for this, this bank ended up suing me. And so
being sued by so many people right now. If y'all want to throw some funds our way.
And so I sat. Whenever you get a summons from court, you get a shit ton of paperwork. Like, they give you, 2 copies of the summons, and it's
and then $110 just for getting the paperwork sent to your house in the first place.
Right.
Paid that twice.
So what happened was, I thought that the paperwork for that, I thought it was all the same thing, because the hearings between these 2 civil matters that I had were literally 2 days apart. And so I'd never opened the third, I don't know, whatever it was. This was quite a few years ago. And so I was never aware, and I moved, and I didn't leave a forwarding address, and so I never heard anything back. I never heard about it. And so one night I was driving back from this county to the county I live in now, and I got pulled over for speeding. Whoopsie. And I was arrested and put in jail because I missed that court hearing. Civil court, contempt of court, the lawyer moved for contempt of court, and a judge issued a bench warrant. So I was jailed for not paying a debt to the bank. Even though that's not technically why I was jailed for contempt of court. That's how they get around the debtors laws where you cannot be imprisoned. Back a long time ago, we had debtor prisons and things like that. And that's how they get around. When they really want you to pay that money, they'll find a way to put you in jail until you can pay. So when I found somebody to come bail me out, they automatically confiscated my bail and applied it to that civil case, and I did not receive it. So I was a little upset about that. I didn't know about it, and if I had, I probably would have shown up and made a payment plan with them or argued my side of the case. And that's my fault for not opening up every envelope. Not completely saying that was unfair and unjust. I am a little bit, obviously, because I thought it was a little ridiculous that I got arrested, put in jail over a debt that I owed a bank 3 years ago. So just warning to anybody out there that if should keep an eye, a lot of court records are online now, so which I like to look people up when they look like they've been, like when they look rough on their Facebook, I'm like, that person looks like they've been getting into some drugs. Just check the Findlay Municipal Court website and see what kind of court cases they might have.
Ain't got
going
county
on.
active inmates.
Yes. So that actually happened to me, and so that's how. And Ohio is like one of the worst states to live in. There are no consumer protections here. Like,
oh, there's really not.
Debts.
They're a fire at will
First
state
of all,
still.
there's no like statute limitations on debt. So debts never go dormant. I think there's like it has to be dormant.
In my
for
mind, they
15
do.
Years. Yeah. I'm not paying you, so that debt's dead to me. But I mean, there are very few protections for us, and they like always make sure that you have a forwarding address, and that you're always checking your county or your city. If you owe money and you just randomly check to make sure that you're not, and that also will happen where like you can file a civil suit against anybody for whatever reason, and it used to be a real big deal where landlords will file a suit against you and they'll send it to the wrong address or put no forwarding address, and then you don't show up to court and they get a default judgment for $2,000 to $5,000. I actually rented from a guy who did that for 2 years, and I looked his court record up. And from like 2001 until 2003, he had sued 22 different people for between $2,000 and $5,000 that had rented from him. And now he takes Metro, And he's a piece of shit. And he's been trying to sue me. I repainted my place. I shampooed the car. I mean, I expected my deposit back. I worked so hard on that rental. And he sent me this bill, $6 for a light bulb.
Dumb stuff. I've had those before too.
Right, and so he has been fighting me this is 2017. I rented. My youngest son is 13. I rented from him before he was born. So this is 14 years that I have been fighting back and forth with this guy. Like, I'm not paying you. He keeps trying to sue me, and I'm like, I show up every time, and I'm like, I absolutely do not owe this man money, So give it up, Al. You ain't getting no goddamn money from me. Sorry. But that's an infringement of my fucking freedom.
Yep.
Okay?
I mean, and I think that anything that they can do, they will. And I think that there's a lot of people whose debts would go away very quickly if we could just have universal health care and we legalize marijuana.
Right? That would.
I'm sorry, but if you want to talk about a boosting economy, you want to talk about people putting on their bootstraps and getting back to work.
Well,
you know what? Go fuck your guys' selves and really think about that one. And I really want you to think deep, long, and hard about how you are fucking ignorant, because people are in a situation. How I owe some money to the hospital that I'm being a jerk about, and I owe some money to some credit cards, and I'm paying off those credit cards little by little. But I'm getting things paid off at my own availability. Why haven't you paid us in 3 months? Well, you know what? I had an electric bill. I had to pay my car off. I had this.
Heartless about it. They don't care.
They don't. And I'm like, there has been I will say there has been a handful of companies that have been super nice, that have worked with me. Somebody called me the other day. They're like, hey, did you know that you owed us $529? I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, I went on your website a month and a half ago. It said it was paid in full. Well, there was 2 missed payments on there. It didn't show me that I had 2 missed payments.
Right.
Well, we need the $500. Well, I don't have I just put $500 down on my freaking car. I don't have that kind of money. So I'm not trying to spill my financial burden on anybody. But what I'm saying is that, again,
financial burden.
You got a financial burden. Like, you got to figure out what's more important. Okay, well, I have to take that $500 and I need to put it to a car with a ridiculous interest rate on it right now. So I have a car to go to my job, and so that job can provide me money for insurance that I shouldn't even have to be paying for anymore, because that would save me $336 a month. $336 extra dollars a month, I could actually, if I didn't have to pay for health insurance for the last, let's say 3 years, I didn't have to pay for health insurance, I would have been able to pay off 3 credit cards and had a significant down payment on the vehicle that I had, so my interest rate wouldn't be so high. I'm not saying anything about nothing, but if you want to keep suing me, you're more than welcome to. At some point, I'm going to probably get thrown into jail for it. However,
just show up for your court hearings. You won't.
Yeah,
that's the only way that they can. I'm serious. Contempt of court.
Yeah.
That's it. They can't hold you in default. I mean, debtor prison laws. That's how they get around debtor prison laws. You cannot imprison somebody for owing you money, but you can put them in jail for not showing up to court.
Exactly, and that's one of those things where you really got to think about it, and you got to figure out what's important. And, and I got to do the manipulation. Okay. Yeah. But I'm also like, hey, by the way, this is what I've got. This is what I can do for you. You do this for me, I'll do this. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I want to get this off of my credit report. My credit's gone down like 170 points over the last 2 years because of just stuff. And it's life. Life happens, people. But again,
I think everybody can attest to that.
Yeah, life happens, and sometimes you fall behind and you don't know how. Getting out of falling behind is, I don't know. I think it's easier to be so far behind than stay ahead and live comfortably. I don't doubt it. I definitely over the last few years, I saw what that meant of where you're living you're not living great. You're living good though. Like you're living like things are getting paid on time.
Barely, yeah.
But you're getting.
But that's it. You ain't saving no money, are you?
You ain't saving no money. But then like something happens, you change your jobs, payments, bills, things pop up out of nowhere. Then suddenly you can't. You really can't do nothing. And you can't do anything about it. And then when you get down, dude, getting back out of that is so hard. Because people don't want they don't want your $50. They want you to throw down $300. Okay, well if I throw you $300, then I gotta like not throw this person $300. Then I gotta like, or I can't throw down these 2 other payments. Like I will pay you, but like you tell me here's my financial restrictions. Will you tell me what I can do to pay you off at a reasonable time and not be owing you $400 for the rest of my life? Like I want to get there, and I'm trying to get there, and I'm in my mid-30s. I shouldn't have to worry about this. I should be having a retirement. Yeah. I should be thinking about my kids' college.
Along. And here's I know you've talked about your parents and raising you, but first of all, there are no second chances in life. Every day that you live is a live reality. You don't get a do-over. If you make a mistake, you don't get to erase it. That's just life. And we have all these rules in place that don't make allowances for those fuck-ups. Like, not all of us are raised well, like, I was raised, and my parents, they didn't care to work. We were very, very poor. Like, I've dumpster dived for cans for money for dinner.
Oh, my.
It's very, very, like, lived without water. I've lived in some very rough conditions in my time. And a lot of times when you grow up like that and a lot of people around me were like that, where, we all knew how to hook up our cable illegally because nobody would pay their bill. And so they would just unhook it from the pole. You know what I mean? But like, it was really, really hard. And if you don't have, and I think that goes along with a lot of people who live in urban areas, like black people, they can kind of understand what I'm saying, is if you don't have that kind of, okay, when you turn 18, you should budget, and you should, when your example are people who don't take care of their bills, or, they put their utility names in different people's names because they just run up the bill, and then they just put it in somebody else's name and never pay it, and you don't have a good guidance or a mentor or somebody to show you the different way, and you start off your adult life that way before you realize that you don't like living like that. You actually prefer to have cable and electric and your water bill paid, and it feels good. And then you ruin your fucking life by the time you're 25 learning that lesson. Like, oh, that's not how you're supposed to be an adult. That's not how you're supposed to live.
Well, exactly. And it's like, it's...
But now you've already ruined your credit, and you know what I mean? So now you're already fucked right there.
Look, I have been seriously talking for about 2 weeks now. My husband thinks I'm nuts, but I have thought on a very, very serious level about what it would take is that if,
A reboot.
A bankruptcy claim. And I said, how about this? Like, what would happen if, like, we separated?
Right.
Like, not, like, fully separated, because, we've been together, like, for a
Right.
bajillion years, but, like, how if we, the system's out there.
Marriage is a construct, and it just ties you to the other person's finances.
Yep, and that's all that really is, and that's one of the things I'm like, look, I'm going to ruin you if I don't figure out how to separate from you on the legal forms.
Right.
Because if I can declare bankruptcy without having to take you under with me,
Yeah.
I'm not looking for I'm not looking for society to pay my debts. Don't get me wrong.
You're trying to figure out a way to dig out of it so that you can be
How else
successful.
can I dig out of it? I mean,
Right.
I already work 2 jobs. I have 3
Right.
sides. I feel like I'm already doing everything
You need
to
a
my best
reboot,
ability.
and I
How
don't
can I raise 2 kids, work 2 jobs, do what I'm passionate about,
You need
which
a
is
fucking break.
yeah.
And
I
I'm
just
sorry
want a
that
break.
I want
I
a
just
break.
want
I
somebody
think
to, like, throw me a bone and, like,
everybody in America, 90% of us that aren't doing that great or didn't have a really great upbringing or, I see people my
let
age.
the fucking system crash and all of our shit gets wiped. Like,
I'm
cool with it.
Right. Let's do a reset for everybody and see who survives and who doesn't.
Because I'm going to tell you what, all of us who are living beneath who are living, like, paycheck to paycheck.
Not even paycheck to paycheck.
Not even. Like, like...
Look out for hot ready.
Yeah. But for those of us who are getting by, when or if the system ever crashes, we're going to be like, everybody's going to be running around, freaking out, causing us anxiety. We're all going to be like, okay, well, we are cool with, like, the rice and beans and the water, and this is how we're, like, that's not below us. That's not beneath us. It's not going to change that much for us. Right. We're the ones that are going to rise above. While everybody else is out there, committing, not being able to handle their responsibilities, out there going batshit crazy or doing whatever because they are in total chaos and disarray. I'm like, well, the rest of us are like, well, dude, our lives are already like, I mean, what are you gonna do? You're gonna take away this? I mean, you can't because there's gonna be too much chaos for too long before they're gonna catch up. I'm like, dude, just start a hard reboot. We're already trillions of dollars in debt. Yeah. What's another trillion? I mean, honestly, we're already effed. Like, let's just be real honest about our debts that we owe to society and or quote unquote to the government. I'm cool about owing my debts to society and paying that forward as long as it's a society that goes ahead and takes care of me too. I will scratch your back, you scratch mine. But if I have somebody who's constantly working against me, who is
actively making sure I stay down so that they can make their pocket a little bit fatter.
I don't really give a shit about you because you have no humanity left. So sit there and look around these people like, I mean, Bill Gates could once again just pull out the wallet and say, you know what, I'm going to take care of, I mean, he could save not like 1 or 2, he could just save 98 people's lives. This guy could throw down him and the Koch brothers and everybody else could just like for him, like, I don't know, I'm talking like 6 months. I'm not talking about like an entire year. I'm talking 6 months of their lives. Just not take their money and give it back to society because they owe. Oh, well, technically we owe them, but give it back into society and bam. I'm not talking it would change the world. It would change us, though.
Laws, like,
but why is money changing us? Oh, I hate that.
Because it's the currency of life. Like, you can't
Such
do anything
bullshit.
Unless you have money, right?
It's so stupid.
But when I was little, we used to take rides. We used to do all kinds of stuff for free. And now we don't.
Yeah.
Now it's like to go to Cedar Point. We haven't been to Cedar Point in like 15 years because we just can't afford it. I mean, it's
like $59 a ticket now. And even for kids, for our family to go is $200 plus food and drinks.
Parking.
Yeah, parking fees.
You can't eat at Cedar Point unless you want to spend $15 on a hamburger and fries that taste like shit.
Yep.
Or $3 for a bottle of
water. But yet, why is all these brick and mortar stores going down, and why are all these things succeeding, and why is everything closing? Well,
we don't have any discretionary income. We literally spend our money on our bills, and then we try and budget cheap-ass food that's not that great for us to eat, and then we don't have any money left over after that. In addition to us imprisoning people, we set them up to fail when they're finally released because you can only imprison people for so long for some offenses, My brother was let out of prison. He served 4 years, and then he was out for 10 months, and then he went back for another 4 years. And there was no rehabilitation at all. And not only that, but when he got out the first time, he tried really hard to get a job. Nobody would give him a job. And then the second time, he tried really, really hard and just kept getting turned down. And then he turned to some other ways to make money and fell into the heroin thing there for a minute, and thank Jesus, he's been clean for a few years now. And he has a baby girl, and he got a job at a factory at a different town, but they hire felons. So he's actually turned his life around, but he got out in 2005. We're 12 years later, and he's just now able to have put, you got to have like 7 years behind you since your last felony before they'll even consider hiring you.
That's ridiculous.
And that's when he was finally able, and he kept getting jobs at like Wendy's, Denny's, fast food places, and then people would be like, I remember, didn't you go to prison or whatever else, and he would lose his job, It's just we set people up to fail so that they'll go back in, just like my brother did. He couldn't make it for 10 months. He did try, and he finally just gave up and was like, I guess I'll make my way criminally then. And he ended up going back to prison, and then he's like, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in prison, and so he just. I don't know how he did it, but I'm really proud of him.
Kudos to you. Shout out, because that's always a way to do it.
That's a very rare story of somebody that has gotten out of prison and just kept going. It used to be a lot easier to start your own business, and that's how a lot of felons made their way, was that they just started their own thing. And, handyman, landscaping, things like that, car mechanics.
Well, and I think that's one of those situations where we really got to figure out, what can we do to make us live more independently, off of the money, off of our own goods, off of our own homes. Again, we're talking about 4th of July here. We're talking about American independence and something that we need. We talk so much about oil, but we never talk about our own problems.
Yeah.
And this is are the things that make us less free, that make us less independent.
Feel like we're never going to get anywhere. Like, I can't celebrate being an American because I'm so stressed about my life and how I'm going to,
Yep.
I'm really...
Why aren't we doing fireworks this year? You know how expensive fireworks are, kid? Right. This is why.
I'm very, very proud of the country that our forefathers attempted to find.
I agree. I agree.
I read the Declaration of Independence, and it makes me feel a little proud,
Mm-hmm.
But then you see what our country is now, and we really don't have the freedoms that we had before. We have a large religious sect that really wants to control this country and swears up and down that this country was founded on religious reasoning or religious concepts, and that was actually one of the reasons why we left.
Right.
And so, that I get that's a big thing for me, as I would like freedom from religious organizations. I don't believe there's a thing about church and state. Hello, can we please stick to that? I'm very big on a separation of church and state. I want logic to rule our government and our country, and this is the best way to go about it. And I get kind of tired of us sticking our heads in the sand and being like, we'll just go on and keep on having 20 kids each, and pretending like we don't, and just pretend like everything's the same as it was 100 years ago. Nobody cares, and I just find it upsetting. I
find it very upsetting too.
And I think a lot of America, and I just want to say thank you to all the other countries out there that have been listening to us. I know that Canada Day just occurred right before July 4th.
Yep, they had theirs yesterday.
Yeah, and so I know that every country kind of has their own celebrating. And I just wonder, like, how well are they doing in their countries? Like, when they celebrate their Independence Day, how free are they feeling? Like, they're always saying we're the freest country in the world, and I really don't think, I think that's just something they tell us. That's some propaganda, okay, Miles?
Yeah.
They're bullshitting us.
No bullshitting us. And on that note, my friends, happy 4th of July. We started with a wonderful quote. We are going to end with a wonderful quote from the one and only Woodrow Wilson.
I believe it was a credible racist, though. So
he was incredibly racist.
But this is a great quote.
It's a great quote. So, sometimes the best quotes don't come from the best people.
Hitler had a lot of great things to say, too. You know what I mean?
He really
did. Like, you can take some of those quotes out of context, and if you read it off to somebody, they'd be like, yeah, and they're like, well, Hitler said that. Oh, actually, I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that anymore. But the one great thing that I believe that he says that goes so much more so into 2017 is liberty, here we go. Liberty has never come from the government. Liberty has always come from the subjects of it. The history of liberty is a history of resistance. So keep on resisting.
Stay vigilant, my friends. Don't give up. I mean, it's a constant barrage of news coming out, people violating our rights and rolling back our rights and trying to stick us in a box. And it's exhausting. You feel like giving up. But don't give up. We're fighting. And we're all going to get a better life for ourselves.
Hell yeah.
All right.